Drive Time with Roz here on Gateway 97.8 from the heart of Eastgate. Although I'm in lockdown today, I wanted to mention a programme that's on BBC One, Look East tonight. It's featuring end-of-life difficulties and hospices and chaplaincy, the problems they face during the COVID-19 situation. And joining me by the powers of Skype right now, it's always a pleasure to welcome her onto my show, is Lady Sidra Naeem, who's a chaplain for St Luke's Hospice right here in Basildon. Good afternoon to you, Lady Sidra. How are things going and what's led to this programme tonight? What are you going to be talking about on BBC Look East? I'm going to promote why you're on television tonight.
Good afternoon, first of all, Roz. It's a pleasure to see you again. And the reason why I was contacted was that there has been a lot of deaths, especially within the BAME community, due to them getting the virus, the coronavirus more, which has been headline news. And they wanted to know how the Muslim community were coping with all the funeral arrangements and the end of life care and the rituals that take place before burial, like washing, how they were coping with all of that whilst we are in lockdown, because a lot of hospices were closed down to the public where no relatives could actually come anymore to visit, and the chaplains were not allowed to go in. They could only talk via Skype to any patients who needed it.
It must be quite upsetting for a lot of the families then.
It's very upsetting because, first of all, there is a closer bond anyway within the Muslim community with their families. We all live in tight-knit family structures and everybody's very close. And then during lockdown, some of those families could not visit their loved ones in hospices who were dying of cancer. And one ritual that takes place just before they die is that to loved ones, a patient who's about to die would say their testimony of faith. It's little bit like when they enter the world and have like a baptism kind of thing, like within the Christian community. It's something that they would say out loud to basically so that they die a Muslim as well. And a lot of families could not witness that testimony of faith, which a lot of chaplains had to do over Skype, which is not the same thing because the personal social bonding is not there.
And how is it affecting you personally as a chaplain? Are you able to do your job to the full capacity that you're normally able to do it or were able to do it prior to lockdown?
No, the only thing that is fulfilled is speaking to the patient, which is being done through Skype. And as you know, it's not the same thing. 80% of all communication is verbal language, verbally being there, and also body language. So I feel talking to them through Skype, I'm not picking up on their body language. I'm not able to hold their hand to reassure them or wipe their tears for them when they cry. You know, all those things, the physical touch is not there. And a lot of the elderly patients, especially, who are the majority who are dying from cancer, they are not used to connecting through social media. They don't even know what Skype is, a lot of them. And for them, it's just looking at a television screen. So the emotions are not there. It's been very hard for them, more, I would say, for the patient than it is for me as a chaplain.
It's a very difficult situation.
And did you know we couldn't wash our bodies? You know, we have a ritual to wash our bodies before being, and we couldn't do that with people who died of corona. And it was very, very sad. And then on top of that, when the people did die, we had lots and lots of family that died and friends. And with Islam, the bereavement process is very quick because the next day the body is buried and everybody goes to the funeral, and that is our goodbye, which heals the bereavement process. And what was happening this time was, first of all, it wasn't the next day. So there was a huge backlog in the Muslim cemeteries who couldn't cope with the numbers that were coming in. So it took a good couple of days even to get the paperwork sorted because of lockdown. A lot of council offices have been closed and the people haven't been around.
I should imagine there's a big backlog of items like this to deal with, and we mentioned the sort of pressure and the upset on the families as well. How do you think the Muslim families have been coping with their emotions in this?
It's been very hard, especially for those families who could not go to the funeral, because apparently there was only 6 allowed, direct family only to funerals. From the Muslim community, for example, our funerals are huge and it's our bereavement process. They couldn't say their goodbyes, and that is the bereavement process really for Muslims, usually the next day. So bereavement counselling doesn't even take place in the Muslim community because that final goodbye is there immediately. And also we do believe in an afterlife as well, strongly believe, you know, so we believe we will meet them one day in heaven, or they've gone to heaven. That helps with the bereavement process. In this lockdown, that bereavement process did not happen. So a lot of those families, the bereavement process has been extended and they haven't been able yet to express that bereavement because they didn't go to the funeral. So I think after lockdown, a lot of Muslim families now will seek bereavement counselling, and the chaplains are going to be super busy. One of my friends, she had cancer and she passed away right during the lockdown when it got really heavy, you know, when you weren't allowed out and all the rest. I couldn't go to her funeral. I was really quite depressed about that.
Isn't it? Yeah, depressing, yeah.
For me, the bereavement process happens quickly when you go to a funeral because you've said your goodbyes. You see, I find without going to that funeral, you haven't said your final goodbye, and then there is this sort of void inside you, you know, that you didn't say bye to them or you didn't see their face, that kind of stuff. And I think that is so crucial really in the bereavement process, counselling process.
How's your family coping with this? Because your husband's a doctor, isn't he? I bet he's busy.
He's been really, really busy, and we have in a way been in a little bit of fear because he's a frontline worker as a doctor.
Of course, the BAME community, we're hearing, has been hit far more than the white community with the COVID-19. I know you've been doing some broadcasting about this, Lady Sidra. Do you have any theories of your own as to why this might be?
3 reasons which the media haven't exposed, but I did, I think, on Johnny's show. The very first important thing, which is a well-known fact, is that frontline workers are the doctors, the carers,
so I thought it was
nurses,
that.
And the BAME community make a huge amount really of those frontline workers. I would say approximately 80% of the frontline workers who are doctors, nurses, care workers are all from the BAME community to begin with. So they are the ones who are frontline, directly in contact with the patients who are suffering from the coronavirus. So obviously the probability of them catching it is going to be a lot more than the rest of the community. So that's the first one. The second one is that a lot of people from the BAME community have got medical conditions which make them more vulnerable. And those medical conditions are there either due to their diets or they're genetically. So like, for example, diabetes is rife actually amongst our community, so heart problems and things like that. But that is not just because of our diets, it's actually genetically there as well from generations going back, a lot of those heart conditions and things. So they're obviously going to be more vulnerable, which makes them more susceptible then to catch that virus. And the third one, which is a very interesting one, is no one else has picked up on, but doctors have, is that anybody who's got a darker skin will have less vitamin D. They have vitamin D deficiency in this country because our skins protect us from the sun.
Yes.
If you went out in the garden, you would absorb a lot more sunlight to make up that vitamin D than I would, for example. And if you have low vitamin D, your immunity is low. So you are more likely then to catch other diseases like the coronavirus. And that's something which people haven't really publicised enough. And
yes. Now, I heard something on the radio program the other day, Lady Sidra, about it's wrong for a black person to be slapped with sun cream. Is that right? Would that stop a black or dark skinned person absorbing the sun's rays and getting that vital vitamin D?
It depends, you see, because it depends. A sunblock blocks out all the sunlight. That is not recommended because we need sunlight to make the vitamin D. But sunscreens are just there to stop you burning some of them. That is needed. So our skins do burn. My skin burns a lot in the sun. I do get sunburn. So when I go on holiday and things, I do have to take sunscreen with me. But a sun block, which is totally blocks off the sun completely, that is not recommended because we need more sunlight to make the same amount of vitamin D that a white British person will make by just stepping outside. They will absorb it a lot more. They're lighter skinned, aren't they?
Yes. Now, yesterday we heard Grant Shapps on the television on the Downing Street briefing talking about wearing face masks on public transport and it becoming compulsory. I would have said Muslim women have the perfect right now to be wearing the niqab and the burqa. We've talked about it many times on my show, Lady Sidra. I mean, wouldn't that be the perfect face mask? Even Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, who come out with the outrageous suggestion just last year about bank robbers and letterboxes. Here we have some protection, don't we?
Yes. Did you know that at the beginning there was a huge shortage of face masks? Nobody could get them. The shops couldn't even get them because everybody was running out to get the face masks. And a lot of Muslim ladies, even though they don't normally wear a niqab, they actually then wore a niqab or used a material and put it across their noses to make a niqab. And I've actually seen some men doing this because I actually did see 2 or 3 men who didn't have face masks and they got a scarf, a woolly scarf, and they'd made like a niqab going across it. It did make me smile. So yes, that is exactly what has been happening. And I've seen white British ladies now wearing the black, you know, they've got black face masks, haven't they, which cover most of their face. And I look at it and it does bring a smile to my face because I think, you know what, they just look like, it just looks like a job.
Boris Johnson will have to backtrack on what he said about bank robbers and letterboxes. I mean, he ought to be wearing one now.
Yes. Yes, he caught it as well, didn't he? He caught the virus.
Yeah. I was quite shocked at that, actually. I thought at one point we were going to lose our Prime Minister.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is I did actually pray for him. I was worried about him. I thought, you know, he's the only anchor we've got, really.
Yeah, after all that debacle last year with Theresa May and going round and round in circles with Brexit, and then we finally get some kind of direction with Boris Johnson, and then just a matter of months later, he's fighting for his life. It just doesn't seem right.
Yes, when he went into ICU, then I did get a little bit worried about him, actually.
Yes.
So, yeah, I did pray for him, I must say. I did feel very sorry for him then.
Yeah. Yeah. And finally, Lady Sidra, because time is moving swiftly on now and we will have to go to the travel very shortly, we must touch on the topic of Black Lives Matter. I know you've been having meetings online today about this. There have been protests all across the world over the sad death of George Floyd in the United States. What have you been hearing your end?
Yes, I think there's been a huge race hate crime increase all of a sudden due to that incident in the whole world, not just here in Essex. And we had a very big event today, actually, with the councillor leaders and mayor. The mayor of Basildon was there as well to discuss this topic, and I will be releasing the video soon. And we just spoke about why some of the increases have happened. And did you know that one of the things that came up was the fact that BAME communities are dying more because of the virus, and members of the BAME have been receiving public things out there like, why aren't you going in your houses? Why aren't you wearing a face mask? And why are you out here? Why aren't you locked down in your house? So it has been exposed that the BAME community have been relaxing lockdown rules, but that is not true at all, because they have been staying indoors. It's because of all this thing about what they're hearing are not the reasons why BAME community have got this virus more. They're just hearing they've got it more. So if they heard the reasons more, then some of those racial comments would not come out. Even on Eid day, it's like spending Christmas in lockdown. It was very sad. And I came on the other television program about Eid in lockdown, Politics England, the program was, and there we spoke about how the Muslim community are indoors spending Eid on their own, in their own families.
Well, that's where we have to leave it, Lady Sidra, really only for time reasons. We can catch you on television this evening. On what channel? What programme? It's
BBC One East, and it is Look East is the programme, and I think it's 961 is the Sky channel number.
Okay,
yes.
Well, that's conveyed to our listeners this afternoon if they want to see you a little bit later on this evening on the television. I want to say a big thank you for joining me on the Drive Time show today. Hopefully the next time we meet, it will be back in the Gateway studio. Lady Sidra Naeem, you're the chaplain for St Luke's Hospice. You also work at the Anglia Ruskin University and, of course, a Queen's representative.
Thank you very much.